My parents forced me to be an accountant, but I quit to pursue my dream as an artist. Now they say I'm selfish for choosing happiness over their expectations. Am I wrong for choosing my own path? Okay, so I've been lurking on Reddit for a while, but this is my first time posting. I need to get this off my chest because I feel like I'm drowning in guilt and confusion. Here's the situation. I'm Travis, 25 years old, and I've always been the quiet one in my family. My parents are your typical traditional, hardworking folks who believe that success means having a stable, high-paying job. My dad's an engineer and my mom's a teacher. They've always pushed me and my older brother, Caleb, to follow in their footsteps, or at least choose a career that's respectable and secure. Caleb, who's 28, is basically the golden child. He's a lawyer, married to his high school sweetheart, and just bought a house in the suburbs. My parents couldn't be prouder of him. Meanwhile, I've always been the artsy kid. I love drawing, painting, and creating digital art. It's my passion, and I've always dreamed of becoming an illustrator or graphic designer. But to my family, that's not a real job. Growing up, I tried to please them. I went to college and majored in business because my dad said it was a safe choice. But I hated every second of it. I spent most of my free time sketching in my notebook or working on freelance art projects. After graduation, I got a job as an accountant because, again, my parents said it was the responsible thing to do. But I've been miserable ever since. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. I was at a family dinner and my grandparents were there. They started talking about how proud they were of Caleb and how he's made something of himself. Then my grandpa turned to me and said, "So, Travis, when are you going to get a real job like your brother?" I froze. My parents didn't say anything to defend me. They just looked at me like they were waiting for an answer too. I mumbled something about my accounting job, but my grandpa just scoffed and said, "That's not a career. That's just a paycheck." That night I couldn't sleep. I felt like a failure. I've been working so hard to make my family proud, but nothing I do is ever good enough. The next day, I decided to talk to my parents. I told them how unhappy I was and how I wanted to quit my job and pursue art full-time. My dad immediately shut me down. He said, "Art is a hobby, not a career. You need to grow up and start thinking about your future." My mom tried to be more understanding, but she still sided with my dad. She said, "Travis, we just want what's best for you. We don't want you to struggle." I tried to explain that I'm already struggling, just in a different way. I feel like I'm living someone else's life, but they didn't get it. My dad even threatened to stop helping me financially if I quit my job. He said, "If you want to throw your life away, that's your choice, but don't expect us to support you." I felt so trapped. On one hand, I don't want to disappoint my family, but on the other hand, I can't keep living like this. I've been so stressed that I've started losing sleep and feeling physically sick. Last week, I finally snapped. I quit my job and decided to focus on my art. I've been taking on freelance projects and building my portfolio, but it's been tough. Money's tight and I've had to cut back on a lot of things. My parents found out a few days ago, and they were furious. My dad called me selfish and said I was throwing away everything they've worked for. My mom cried and said she was worried about me. Even Caleb got involved. He called me and said, "Travis, you're being ridiculous. You can't just quit your job and expect everything to work out. You're not a kid anymore." I tried to explain my side, but he just kept interrupting me and saying I was being irresponsible. He even said, "Do you know how embarrassing it is for me to tell people my brother is an artist? What am I supposed to say when they ask what you do?" That hurt. A lot. I've always felt like I was living in Caleb's shadow, but hearing him say that made me feel like I'll never be good enough. Now I'm starting to wonder if I made the wrong choice. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I should have just sucked it up and stayed at my job. But at the same time, I feel like I deserve to be happy. I've spent my whole life trying to live up to my family's expectations, and it's never been enough. I don't want to wake up 10 years from now, stuck in a job I hate, regretting that I never took a chance on my dreams. After that conversation with Caleb, I felt like I was stuck in a fog. I couldn't stop replaying his words in my head. "Do you know how embarrassing it is for me to tell people my brother is an artist?" Felt like a punch to the gut. I've always known that Caleb and I are different, but I never thought he'd be ashamed of me. I mean, he's my brother. Aren't siblings supposed to support each other, no matter what? I tried to shake it off and focus on my art. I've been working on a series of digital illustrations inspired by my favorite books and movies. It's the first time in years that I've felt genuinely excited about something. But every time I sit down to work, I hear my dad's voice in my head. Art is a hobby, not a career. It's like this constant weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. A few days after quitting my job, I got a call from my aunt, my mom's sister. She's always been the cool aunt who lets you have an extra cookie and doesn't tattle to your parents. But this time, she didn't sound so cool. She said, "Travis, your mom called me. She's really worried about you. Are you sure you know what you're doing?" I tried to explain my side, but she cut me off and said, "I get that you want to follow your dreams, but you have to be practical. Your parents just want what's best for you." I wanted to scream, "What about what I want?" But I didn't. I just thanked her for calling and hung up. The next week was even worse. My grandparents came over for Sunday dinner, and of course, the topic of my life choices came up. My grandpa said, "Travis, you're too old to be chasing fantasies. When are you going to settle down and get a real job?" My grandma chimed in with, "You know, your cousin Emily just got promoted at her firm. She's making 6 figures now. Why can't you be more like her?" I wanted to disappear. I felt like I was back in high school, sitting at the dinner table while everyone compared me to Caleb or some other successful relative. It's like no matter what I do, I'll always be the disappointment of the family. That night, I called my best friend, Marcus. He's the only person who really gets me. We've been friends since middle school, and he's always been my biggest cheerleader. When I told him what happened, he said, "Travis, you can't keep letting your family dictate your life. You're an adult. It's your life, not theirs." I know he's right, but it's easier said than done. My family has always been close-knit, and the idea of going against them feels like I'm betraying them somehow. Keep thinking, what if they're right? What if I'm making a huge mistake? The financial stress isn't helping either. I've been living off my savings, but they're running out fast. I've been applying for freelance gigs, but it's tough to find consistent work. Last week, I had to skip lunch for 3 days straight because I couldn't afford it. I didn't tell anyone, not even Marcus. I didn't want to admit how bad things were getting. Then, out of nowhere, I got a break. A small indie game studio reached out to me after seeing my portfolio online. They offered me a contract to do concept art for their new game. It's not a lot of money, but it's a start. I was so excited that I called my mom to tell her the news. I thought maybe she'd be happy for me, but instead, she said, "Travis, I don't want to burst your bubble, but this doesn't sound like a real job. What happens when the contract ends? How are you going to pay your bills?" I didn't know what to say. I just hung up and cried. The worst part is, I'm starting to doubt myself. What if my mom's right? What if I'm just chasing a pipe dream? I keep thinking about Caleb and how he's always known exactly what he wants. He never second-guesses himself. Meanwhile, I feel like I'm constantly torn between what I want and what everyone else expects of me. Last night, I had a huge fight with my dad. He called to check on me, but it quickly turned into an argument. He said, "Travis, you're throwing your life away. Do you think you're special? Do you think you're the only one who's ever had dreams? Life isn't a fairy tale. You need to grow up and face reality." I lost it. I screamed, "Maybe I don't want your version of reality. Maybe I want to be happy for once." He hung up on me, and I haven't heard from him since. Now I'm sitting here, staring at my half-finished illustrations, wondering if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. I feel so alone. My family doesn't understand me, and I'm starting to wonder if I even understand myself. So Reddit, am I being selfish for wanting to live my life on my own terms? Or am I just being naive? Update: how the situation has evolved since then. It's been about 9 months since I quit my accounting job and decided to pursue art full-time. A lot has happened since then, with so many ups and downs that I can barely keep up. I thought I'd give you all an update because, well, I've been thinking a lot about everything that's gone down and I need to get it out. First, let's talk about the good stuff. Remember that indie game studio that reached out to me? Well, that contract turned into something bigger. They liked my work so much that they offered me a long-term position as their lead concept artist. It's not a fortune, but it's enough to pay my bills and even save a little. I've been working on this fantasy RPG, and it's been incredible. I've never felt more alive creatively. For the first time in years, I wake up excited to work. It's like I'm finally living my dream. But, of course, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. My relationship with my family is complicated. After that huge fight with my dad, we didn't talk for months. It was radio silence. My mom would occasionally text me things like, "We're worried about you," or "Your dad misses you." But it always felt like there was an unspoken, but at the end of those messages, like, "We miss you, but you need to come to your senses." Caleb, on the other hand, has been different. About 6 months ago, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. I thought he was there to lecture me again, but instead, he said, "Look, I don't get what you're doing, but I can see it's important to you. I'm not going to pretend I understand, but I'm here if you need me." It was the first time in years that he didn't make me feel like a failure. It wasn't a full-blown apology, but it was something. We've been talking more since then, and it's been nice. Not perfect, but better. Now, here's where things get messy. Remember how I said money's been tight? Well, a couple of months ago, I hit a rough patch. The studio had some budget issues and my hours got cut. I was barely scraping by, and I had to dip into my savings again. I was too proud to ask for help, so I started taking on side gigs. Freelance illustrations, commissions, anything I could find. It was exhausting, but I managed to get through it. Then, out of nowhere, my car broke down. Completely. The repair bill was way more than I could afford, and I didn't know what to do. I was too embarrassed to ask my family for help, so I ended up borrowing money from Marcus. He's been a lifesaver, but it still feels awful to owe him. I keep telling myself I'll pay him back as soon as I can, but it's just another weight on my shoulders. The car situation was the final straw for my parents. Somehow they found out about it, probably through Caleb, and they showed up at my apartment one weekend. My dad looked like he hadn't slept in days, and my mom had that worried look she gets when she's trying not to cry. They sat me down and said, "Travis, we can't keep watching you struggle like this. We want to help you, but you have to meet us halfway." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, "I don't need your help. I'm doing this on my own." But another part of me was just so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of struggling, tired of feeling like I'm constantly disappointing everyone. So I listened. They offered to help me get a stable part-time job, something flexible that would still allow me to work on my art. At first, I was resistant. I didn't want to feel like I was giving up on my dream. But then my mom said something that hit me hard. "Travis, it's not about giving up. It's about being smart. You can still chase your dreams, but you don't have to do it alone." I'm still processing that. I haven't made a decision yet, but I'm considering it. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't have to do this all by myself. But here's the kicker. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, I got hit with a new problem. A few weeks ago, I found out that the indie studio I've been working for is in serious financial trouble. They might have to shut down if they don't secure more funding soon. If that happens, I'll be out of a job again. I've been applying to other studios and looking for freelance opportunities, but the competition is brutal. It's like every time I feel like I'm getting ahead, something pulls me back. So that's where I'm at. I'm still chasing my dream, but it's harder than I ever imagined. My relationship with my family is slowly improving, but there's still this tension that I don't know how to fix. And now, with the studio potentially closing, I'm facing yet another setback. I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe I'll find another job. Maybe I'll have to swallow my pride and take my parents up on their offer. Or maybe I'll figure out a way to make this work on my own. All I know is that I'm not giving up. Not yet.
Big thanks for watching. Like it, hit subscribe, and don't miss what's coming up.